Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about how I create custom silk screens to use on polymer clay using HTV vinyl, which is heat transfer vinyl, um, and a Silhouette machine, either a Cameo, a Curio, or a Portrait. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of design or anything like this. That's another class all in its own. So what we're going to do is just do something cheap and easy. So I'm going to create myself a little rectangle here that would be about the size that I want to use. And here what I want to do is, if you go to your painter's palette there, you have your colors, you have gradients, and then you also have fill patterns. These are the fill patterns that come with your Silhouette software. You can also add patterns, which I'm not going to go into here. I've got a bunch of patterns in here that I got from one of Cindy Pope's classes on craftcast.com. So we're just going to use one of those because I've already got it going. If I can find it. Swirl. Let's try that one. Nope. 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 You can see she's got a lot of pretty patterns in here that she uses for textures. There we go, the Hawaiian one. Okay, so, and what you can do is you can also go in and you can change the scale of this and everything, but for what I'm going to show you right now, I'm just going to bring it in just the way that it came. So when I look at this, I know that there are going to be a lot of issues. I'm going to go in close here. There's going to be a lot of issues with these guys, these size things, when you start to do that and scale it to the size of a screen print. Because the advantage of being able to create your own silk screens, other than using your own designs or somebody else's designs that you like but you want to manipulate it in some way for your piece, you can make it small. You can have this pattern in 2 or 3 different scales so that you can use it for different things. So what I would do is, and what I did was this design, I did it once. I saw that there were going to be issues weeding, which means taking out the vinyl that you want to be open to the screen. That it was going to be some issues. So basically what I did is I went in and I changed these to a little bit bigger circles. I removed these little comma type marks out altogether. And what I ended up with was something like this. Okay, so you can see the difference here where I went in and I made the big circles there, and I took out the little, I took out the small commas but left the big commas. Okay, so now the other advantage to this is that you can do positives and negatives, and that all depends on what parts of it that you remove when you're weeding it. Okay, but what you definitely want to do is you definitely want to have a border around it here so that you can do those things. Again, not going to go into the whole design thing of it for this. This is just a quick and easy how to do it type thing. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm going to go and send it. And if I go by my line color and only pick the blue, and then I'm going to go to vinyl, heat transfer. So heat transfer glitter, glow in the dark, metallic, printable, smooth is what I'm going to use. Okay, and that is, I'm not hooked up, so it's not going to show me right now. I'll hook up in a second. But basically that's going to show you what it's going to cut by those lines. Now, the other thing that you want to think about is it doesn't hurt to cut it out of paper first to see if you're going to have any of those issues in terms of weeding. So if it were something that you were trying for the first time and you didn't have a whole lot of vinyl that you could mess up around with, then I would say cut it, give it a try in paper and see where the problems are, and then you'll be able to go forward. Okay, so we're going to stop right now, and then we're going to go over to the machine and talk about stuff over there. Okay?
Okay, the first thing to do is to explain to you the difference between the different kind of vinyls. So this is your adhesive vinyl, and it'll always have some sort of a white backing on it. When you cut with the machines, you put this face up. You're going to cut through, do what they call a kiss cut, so that it's still attached to the back, but that you can pull it off. And so that's one way to test to make sure that you have the right. Of course, now I won't want to separate. Okay. So the adhesive, this is already sticky. This is what protects the sticky. Okay, so that's regular vinyl. Adhesive vinyl. Then we have what we call HTV, which is heat transfer vinyl, and it's called that because that's how it works. It's transferred to whatever you're going to put it on, which in most cases is clothing or fabric of some sort, and that does not have a white backing. Most of it doesn't. There's a few that do, but for the most part they don't. And this is the adhesive side. So when you apply heat to this, it's going to activate this adhesive, and so when you cut this, you're going to place it dull side up on your cutting mat. And if you have anything that has words or directions in it, then you're going to have to, or it has words or is directional, then you're going to have to flip your design in your software before you cut it. Okay, so that's the two differences. Okay, so now I've got some white heat transfer vinyl that I'm putting down onto my sticky mat, and it probably doesn't need to be on this sticky of a mat. That's the new super heavy tack. You just need the regular stuff for this. And when you put it down, so I'm going to put it down. I'm only going to be cutting up on the top, but I'll go ahead and just leave the whole thing down. If you have a Curio, do the same thing. You would just cut it down to size beforehand to fit your Curio mat, because that's a little different. If I'm doing them, I tend to be doing a lot at a time because I'm doing reverses and different scales, so I tend to go ahead and use my Cameo for this, but you certainly don't have to. Okay. Okay, so this is the new Cameo 4. I've put my auto blade into the left hand holder, and that one of the new features that it automatically detects what the blades are. I'm going to pull out my little stabilizer and load the mat. Okay, so we go to the send panel. I've clicked the blue color, heat transfer smooth. It's detected what the blade is, and it's going to tell it what settings it needs to use it to cut. But if it's your first time cutting the material, you'll want to do a test cut beforehand. I highly suggest you use Siser Easyweed, S-I-S-E-R. You get what you pay for in vinyl, and it can be very difficult to weed if you're not careful. Okay, so looks like everything's ready. We're going to send it. That's a little glitch we got going on right now. So so you probably didn't see it doing it, but you might have heard it doing it. It taps the blade a couple of times to get it to where the setting is supposed to be. So this is kind of like watching paint dry, so we'll pause it here and I'll come back when I'm finished. Okay, so I've taken it off of the cutting mat and I trimmed around it, making sure that I left the trim lines in there because I want those. And you're going to really have a hard time seeing this because it's on white. So what I tend to do is I'll take a little bit of a pastel, or you could use eyeshadow, just about anything that's going to give you a little bit, show you where the lines are. Okay, and I'm not going to do this whole thing on screen, so we'll okay. So now you can see where those lines are better, right? Okay. So when I get ready to start weeding, I've opened up on my computer the image, and if you remember, I had it filled in with color. Okay, and that's the lines are colored in, so I can figure out which ones I want to take out and which ones I want to leave in when we're talking about positive or negative. And you're going to need some weeding tools, so something really sharp like this tool. There's all kinds of weeding tools out there. Anything really, really sharp. I always have a pair of really sharp tweezers, and I always like to have a pair of these Teflon coated scissors. Okay, so what I want to do, you got to think in terms of what the design is that you want to do. So I'm going to take out the parts that I want the paint to go through to the polymer clay from. Okay. If I was going to do it the other way, then I would take out the opposite lines. Okay, so I'll show you an example. So I'm going to go in there. I'm going to take out that piece. Okay, so now when that gets put onto the organza to create the silk screen, the paint's going to go through that, and so that's where you're going to see the color. Okay, so I'll do a few more. Now, because, and you also need a good pair of magnifying glasses, especially if you're vision challenged by the number of the candles on your birthday cake. Okay. I hope I'm getting this so you guys can see. Because there is no active adhesive on here, there's a lot of static. So pieces will fall back into the areas and get in your way. And, you know, keep on looking at your colored in design on in your software if you get confused about what you're supposed to be taking out, what you're supposed to be keeping in. You guys, hope you can see this. Okay, so every place where there's a hole, the paint's going to go through to the silk screen. Okay, and I will just keep on doing this until it's all finished, and you don't need to watch that either, so we'll get back to it in the next one. Okay, so here's some ones that I had done before, and here you can see all the pieces have been taken out, and you can see where the, put it down there, where the color's coming through. Now this was the way that I was weeding the one that you saw previously. Now here's the opposite, where I kept in the pieces that we took out here. So this will be the negative of it. And this just shows you an idea of the difference in scale that you can get. How you can do it. You can fill a certain shape if you want. So you have all kinds of options. Okay, so when I started this experiment in screen printing, making silk screens with heat transfer vinyl, I went to the fabric store and I got several different versions of organza. This is a really silky one. This one has a little bit more stiffness to it, a little bit more body. And this one is kind of in between the two. Silky, with a fair amount of body. I didn't really see that there was a huge difference between the different ones. The firmer ones are just a little bit easier to handle when you're doing the silk screens because there's a little bit more stiffness to it. But because of the the heat transfer vinyl that you're going to put on it, it's going to stiffen it up quite a bit. So you're going to have your silk screens. Oops, a little bit of extra stuff. And you're going to want to check them really good after you've taken all the bits out to make sure there aren't any little stray bits like that, because that will adhesive down onto the silk screen and that will ruin that. Well, it won't ruin it, but you're not going to want that there. Okay. Okay, so this is the Cricut Easy Press, which is a lot easier to do than using an iron, and I don't have room for a heat press. So this is perfect for me. So you're going to turn it on, and you can set your temperature to whatever the manufacturer's suggestion is. We're going to be using Siser Easyweed HTV. Okay, so you're ready now to iron on your heat transfer. So you want the shiny side is up. Okay, this is the back of the HTV, and this is what has the adhesive in it. So you're going to lay down your piece of organza, lay down your stencil, put a Teflon sheet on top, pick up your Easy Press or your iron or whatever you're going to use. In this case, all you have to do is hit the little button, give it a little bit of pressure, and it's going to time itself down. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put it on. I'm going to press it again just for a few seconds. I'm not even going to put the counter on. And then I'm going to flip it over with my tweezers. I'm going to take off the plastic bit. And now it's become one with the organza. Still flexible, but so much into it that you can't even hardly feel it. And then I'm going to go over it. I'm going to do it one more time with the Teflon, just a few seconds. Flip it over. Okay. Now you can trim it up pretty. And now you have your silkscreen. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put down the silkscreen onto the clay. And I haven't really found that it makes a lot of difference which side you use. There's a little bit more paint goes down on one side or the other, but you should obviously test it before you get started to see what looks the best to you. I'm using the Color Shift Duo colors from Folk Art paint that are really cool. They have, depending on which angle you look at it, it has two colors. I think this one is like a rose and a coral. And I'm using this silicone brush to put it down with, this was an early video when I first started, and I found that if you, this is good, this is a good one to use, but I also like, I think a little bit better the, when they're trying to sell you a credit card through the mail and you get this little fake credit cards. Those work a little bit better because they're a little firmer. Okay, pull it away. Now make sure you put your silkscreen into soapy water immediately so that the acrylic paint doesn't dry on it. And here I've got a smaller version of the hearts to use for earrings. And I'm going to do the same thing. And I kind of go back and forth probably a little bit more than I need to with the paint, but the more you press down through the screen, the better coverage you're going to have. And this is what I really like about the silk screens, is that you can put the patterns into shapes. You can reduce the size so that here you're going to have a pendant and earrings, and you can size it to your cutters. If you have specialty cutters that you like, you can size it to go into those shapes so that you can get really nice pieces out of it. I do this a lot, probably more than needed. There we go. Remove it. Clean up the clay a little bit. And there we go. Okay. Okay, just a few samples to show you what you can do. I'll put notes down in the comments for links to any supplies, and I hope you have fun with this technique and are able to take your polymer clay a little bit further than before. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.